All right, so in today's modern parenting, we all know how hard it can be for kids simply to make new friends at school. But for those with disabilities, that experience can prove even more challenging. And there are more than 7 million public school students across this country with a disability, according to Pew Research Center. So it's really important to teach all kids how to be inclusive and respectful at school. Joining me now is author, speaker, and podcast host Amy Julia Becker, along with psychotherapist Niro Feliciano. And Amy Julia, let's go ahead and start with you. I think this is a great topic. I'm glad that all of us are discussing it. All of us are mothers here, so we know how important it is to want our kids to have a place to belong socially, and also to make sure that we're sort of making that an easy environment for other kids. Amy Julia, you have 3 kids. One of your daughter has Down syndrome. Yep. What is so important for other parents to know? What do you wish other parents knew or taught their kids?
Lots of things come to mind, but I'll start with the idea that disability is not as different as you might imagine. So for me, understanding disability as like a magnifying glass of human experience as opposed to a whole different category of human experience. So for parents to know that the things that are stressful for your kids are probably stressful for my kid too, and it might be magnified. So a new experience might be overwhelming because it is loud, or there are bright lights, or there are little things to touch and it gets overwhelming, or a conflict might be really hard to navigate. But all of those things are not different. They might just be bigger. So that's one big thing I would want other parents to know.
I love what you said. This isn't sort of like a distinct and separate category of being human. This is another shade of being human, a more inclusive one. Niro, what about you? I mean, how can we teach children to be politely curious?
I think empathy is big in helping them understand, what do you think it might be like for that person? I mean, you have your own challenges. What do you think it might be like for that person with a wheelchair, or who looks so different than their peers, to walk into a room? How would you want to be treated if you were in that situation? I also think it's important to encourage questions coming from a place of curiosity, in that, for example, ask about the things that are different. What is it like for you to be in a wheelchair? But also normalize the fact that they're kids too. What do you like to play with? What show do you watch on Netflix, right? What band do you like? So we can highlight the commonalities between them just as kids.
And there's 2 words I hear us all sort of using almost interchangeably. We're using disability, but we're also using difference, right? And for a lot of kids, sometimes that commonality and understanding and empathy isn't necessarily about being disabled, but it may be being racially different, or having a different sexual orientation. So, Amy Julia, how did you talk to your other kids in your family about how to navigate and understand difference, even inside the home?
Yeah, and you're right that talking about disability inside the home allows us to actually be talking about other ways in which we might look or feel different than other people, and how we can still find those places of commonality. And for us, that meant both normalizing and neutralizing. And what I mean by that is saying these are all different experiences of being human. So there's a normal range of human experience. Disability falls within that, and so do all sorts of other differences. And neutralizing, so that we're not setting up a hierarchy of, if you don't have a disability, you are better, but rather saying there are challenges and gifts that everyone has to offer. So we really talk about the fact that our daughter Penny, who has Down syndrome, has gifts to offer our family. So she has actually the gift
of the world.
And the world, absolutely. Being able to slow down more than the rest of us often do, being able to laugh at herself more than the rest of us do. She also has challenges, and we're not trying to minimize those. But the language of challenges and gifts, normalizing, neutralizing, has been really helpful for us.
Tell Penny to share her gifts with me, because I need someone to teach me how to slow down. Pull up a chair, Penny.
Every day.
Niro, look, how can parents who are navigating what can be a steep learning curve, right, and sort of teaching and embracing their children who are different or who have disabilities, how do they sort of put back in and sustain themselves and even sometimes their marriage?
Yeah, no, it's a lot. And I think you have to care for yourself as a parent and a caregiver. It is a weighty task at times, and sometimes you feel alone. And my, coming from a mental health perspective, is talk about it. Talk about it within a caring, supportive community of other people, because otherwise, when we keep it in silence, shame can grow. We might think, okay, I'm a bad parent because I can't handle this challenge. No, you're not. This is a tough parenting situation at times. And what we know is when we talk about it, that shame dissipates. escalates, we begin to normalize some of our challenges and get the support that we need. But we have to make time to care for ourselves.
And speaking of that, I would love to pull up that screen if we can ask our wonderful director, John Duber, here to pull up that screen for us again. You talk about finding community, but also focusing on one step at a time, right? That's the lesson we were talking about Penny teaching us. And I love this date night, you know, out and recognizing your child's gifts. I think just in terms of news that every parent can use, these are some really helpful tips. So Amy Julia Becker, as well as Niro Feliciano, thank you both so much for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your special friendship with us. And there's more news ahead. You're watching NBC News Daily.